Hey, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday, March the 21st. Another great trading day today. There's really been some great learning opportunities the last couple of days, so I'm gonna um, I'm gonna go back and rehash yesterday because I got so many questions about it, and people are getting so confused. And even people even got confused today. And just let me show you. Here's your down channel, clear down channel work, and we finally got a break here. But what do the rules tell us? You're still looking for a retest of the low. So look, you finally, this all this break does is it signals, hey, the trend could be ending. But generally, before it does end, we're going to get a retest. And we're going to get a new low, and there it is. We finally worked down to a new low, and now look what we're trying to rally out of there. So how will we go from here? I don't know. We just got to wait and see. But you can clearly see this channel, and even once we got back in it, it still came into play. And this is, I drew a couple of these green today because, and I'll explain why I drew them green. This one was just to alert you of something to notice here. This one was because it's a it's a, you really have to be thinking twice about going short yet because we really haven't got a reversal type pattern yet. But we'll talk about all that. But hopefully the main thing I want you to see right off the bat is how the price action rules work exactly like we expect. We're trending down. We got a trading range here, or not a trading range, a trading channel, I'm sorry. And we finally break it right here. But then we get a retest with a new low, and it's generally going to be a couple of legs down to a new low, especially one that's coming down like this. And then there you go. And we reverse, and now we're starting to trend the other way. Now, just because you get the trend line break and the new low doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a trend in the other direction. So make sure you understand that. It means you're going to get an extended correction. A lot of times that correction will be a new trend, but sometimes it's just a correction and then the trend starts back again. So that could always happen. So just be aware of that. But I mean, it doesn't get any easier than this right here. It was a little bit tricky maybe when to start going short again, but you're not looking for longs in here. You're looking for shorts because the trend is down. So, and it wasn't even, we weren't even really sure that we weren't in a trading range here. But I'll talk some more about this. And another thing, this rally here, and this always confuses people because you can't see it on this chart because I've got 24-hour data chart. But if you're just using the regular sessions, notice that prices closed. Where did they close yesterday? They closed right here yesterday. Well, during the 8:30 session, prices didn't open down here. So there's a gap from right here to right there, and that's called a day session gap. And that's what this price action was all about here. It's prices trying to fill that gap. Okay, I'm sorry. The phone's ringing off the hook. People looking for me. Crazy things going on. So I got a little distracted, but I think we were talking about this rally here and what was going on. The overnight, the gap between the close yesterday and the regular session open today. Even though with the overnight trading there's no gap in there, there is a gap from the 8:30 open, and prices will usually try to fill that, and that's what we tried to do. We couldn't quite even fill it on my chart, and then the retest started, and you see now we're trying to rally out of here, and my guess is we're going to. So we'll just have to see. Anything can happen, but we expect at least a correction that lasts at least around an hour or more, and a minimum of an hour, I would say. And that's usually a good measure. Nothing's written in stone in trading. Anything can and will happen. And as you can see on this little rally, there was a channel here, and then we finally broke it. We came back and retested the lower side. There's usually going to be some kind of retest. On something that's like a temporary correction here, you might only get a retest that makes a double top, or you might only get a retest that tests the trend line. So that was a good place to go short, thinking that now, hey, we got the retest working. So anyway, we'll come back to all the trades. Let's go look at yesterday. Here's the channel from yesterday. You can see that it's pretty clear, and it actually tightened up a little into maybe right there yesterday. But for the most part, there's where you get the most touches and the closes and so forth. So I believe that's the channel. So even when you break out of here, what is the likelihood of your target? It's going to be it's going to be exactly what this channel is. And so if you take this channel and you measure it like so, you bring this up, look where it went. That's exactly where we went to, maybe one tick further. So that is a great clue. So all it is you go from one channel to the next. And there you can see the next one. And but what happened here were a lot of people got confused wanting to go long right here. But let's take all this away. Here's what we were looking at around 1 o'clock all this is basically because of the FOMC news. This is pretty common of what you'll see on FOMC day. Won't happen every single time, but the majority of the day you see a tight range like this. Everybody's sitting tight. Everybody's scared to trade. Everybody's waiting for the news. And, you know, we haven't had any change in interest rates since when now. So no big news happened. So the moves are not that extreme or volatile like they might have been when there's a chance for stuff to go on, but there's just nothing changing really, so it's not real volatile. But all the same, that news generated a rally right here, and you can see even going up that the top still came into play, but we broke on through. So this is a breakout. What happens 9 times out of 10 when prices break out of a range? We talk about this all the time. It's standard price action rules. They almost always snap back and test that area. So we're not looking for longs. Even though this looks really strong here, this is a news-related event that caused this breakout. And what happens to most breakouts? They fail and prices come back. And so, but because it's news-related, and, and once you do go out, if it keeps going, your target's the other side, like I showed you a minute ago, and that's right where we went to. So now it's backing up, and you can see, and this is a lot of overlap and stuff, but people were interested in going long on this two-legged pullback, but this is a breakout, and what happens to most breakouts? They fail. So there's no uptrend really at this point. You might have drawn a trend line off of this right here. Let me move this out. I was trying not to, but even if you did, it would have looked something like that right there. And so you're waiting on prices to come back to this trend line, if anything. But you're definitely wanting prices to come back and test this area, and probably test this area. We did get a little pullback test right there of this breakout, so you may not come back to here. But notice on that break, there's no test of this. Prices are going to come back and test that. And you need to see a clear test that gives you a good signal in the other direction. And let me make this bigger. You're coming down. Look what you got. You got all this overlap. There's 2 bars up and down. One's a doji. And then you get another little doji. So this is what tempted people to go long. But what have you got now? You've got 1, 2, 3. Really 3 overlapping bars. You really could count these because they're all inside this one. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 bars that overlap quite a bit. This is really the part we're interested in. Nothing bullish here yet. We haven't had one single bar that really looks bullish. You might have thought that one looked a little bullish. There's no sign of anybody buying, because why? The smart traders know that we're coming back to here at least to test this. They're not looking to buy. They're sitting tight waiting to see what happens, because they know most breaks out of a range fail. So there's no reason to go long right there. And assume you did go long. There's your next bar. It breaks above it. You might have thought about going long here, but now it's too late. Look, you're back up here to the top of where the next range was going to. So you're probably just going to end up in a range right up here at the very, that's the most optimistic thing to the upside, is that we end in a range. So now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 overlapping bars, and 2 of them are dojis. So what does that tell you? That's congestion. And look at all those matching highs where prices can't get above that. You don't want to be going long there. And guess what? It breaks above it and it snaps right back. It just trapped everybody to the long side. Then you get this huge reversal bar. Guess what? It breaks, but look, there's still, now we've got one, if you just count these, these bars, now you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 overlapping bars. No reason to go long right there, that's for sure. And guess what? It breaks up and it comes back again. So you can see this is just congested. We broke out the top. Now we're trying to break out the low side. We break out the low side and it's probably going to snap back, right? Look at there. There it comes. Snaps right back, just as you'd expect. And, you might have thought about going long right here. This was the only place in there that I would have even considered going long. And guess what? You'd have had a good trade right there. I believe that would have worked. Let me just double check before I tell you a story. Entry would have been 22.50 or 52.50, and guess where it went to? Just enough to get a scalp. And notice that's your two leg. This is one leg right here. Even though that looks like a two-legged move, it is, but it's one bigger leg, a two-legged correction, and then another leg. And let's just measure it to see how close it is. I'm curious to see how close it is. There's leg one. Then you got a two-legged correction, and then there's leg two. So it went a little bit further, but they're coming back to try to test this, and then they're actually coming back here. So they actually get back to here to test it. But guess what? Now we're just in a range here. And do we make a little double bottom? And look at all the overlapping bars. You don't want to be going long there. It would have worked, but all we do is we go back to the upper side, and then now you see we're just back in a range. The range just moved the same width to the other side. And I don't remember what I did with that other line. There it is. Let's bring it up here and drop it in place, and you can see it. And look at there. And then we come out, and guess where it bounced at the end of the day? Right back down here at the previous range lows. So it just turned out to be a little bigger range. There's really two ranges there, and this is the center, or it's one big range, and this is the center. So hopefully you can see that. So there were so many questions about yesterday, but people think this is a trend. What are the rules? Just always remind yourself, what are the rules? What happens? I don't care how strong this looks here. It looks that way because it's emotional, it's news driven, and there are a lot of stops up here. All the people that were getting short in here have got their buy stops up here. So of course when you get up here, it's going to, and that's a long time for a lot of people to be wrong. And all the people that got long, their short stops are down here, and all the people that are getting short all the way across, there's people getting short all the way across here that aren't scalping. They're trying to catch a move down. They're thinking this is a top. And they put all their safety stops somewhere up above these things, and that's why that rockets off like that. The news pushed it up there, and then they forced it up, and it hit the stops, and boom, there it goes. And then it kind of runs out of room, and because the smart traders know that, hey, we're going to exit right up here. All these, anybody that took this move up got long down here. Trust me, the smart ones did. There might have been a few of your weaker traders that start entering up through here, but this is mostly stop driven, people hitting stops. That's what causes this. You got to understand, you got to learn price action. That's part of it, is understanding what causes this. And obviously most of you didn't even realize this is news driven. And what's the other rule on news? Sometime pretty quickly it usually takes it all back and resets. Look at here, before the market closed, it took every bit of it back. And we closed right here, right where we started. Right exactly where we started. You'll see that over and over and over and over. So, it doesn't mean one day the news won't hit and it won't keep going and going and going. Don't trade on that, but just expect that's what's going to happen and follow the price action. That's how you do it. So, I hope that makes sense to people. Hopefully it's a little more clear now, but this is not a trend. I mean, if you drew a trend line, the only one you're going to get is right across here maybe. And you can see we broke that, and guess what? We made a new high and still follow the trend line rules. Draw your trend lines. I get a little frustrated with this sometimes, but I understand. We got a lot of new traders, and we got people. The ones that frustrate me, though, are the ones that ask these same questions every day. And, you know, you got to study it. You got to understand the rules. You got to know what you're looking for, and you got to draw your trend lines. And where do they usually come off? Your first two swings. And then you could have drawn one coming down this way, like so. Actually, there it is right there. You got the little break. You make a new low, and then it rallies up here. So even on the smaller scale, a lot of times you can find these little trends, and you'll see it over and over and over. So draw your trend lines, just like I did right here, and that was what alerted me. This is where your next really good short is. Okay, that's 15 minutes for yesterday. So let's try to get through today pretty quickly. I've already explained to you what's happened today. We got a trend channel, we got a break, and the reason this, you know, usually, you know, sometimes you don't know how far the break's going to go, so you got to wait on a reversal pattern or whatever. You don't want to just, unless, you know, arbitrarily start shorting, but you do have, I'll talk about those trades when we get there. But when I came in this morning, we were really pretty much in this range, and you can see that prices are spent, you know, they're spending, they're on both sides of the trading range. But more importantly, when I started trading, we were in this little trading range right here. You've already got resistance right across there. That's what I was looking at. Really, it was right across there where your closes. And then we come up here and look at it. We go into congestion right here after a move up, and we break higher. And guess what it does? It just traps everybody that doesn't know what happens when prices break out of a range. So this was the first short. Good chance to go short. You got people trapped and stuck up here at the highs, and you know you're probably going to come back down here and test these lows at a minimum. You don't know that it's going to take off like this, but guess what? It does. And on this particular trade, any runners would have been safe, and you could have ridden this all the way down. You know, you probably would have looked to exit, thinking about exiting right in here. At least play it safe. And, you know, a lot of times I just exit at the next support or resistance if I've gotten a nice good move out of it, because it's probably going to come back. And it does go a little bit lower, but then guess what? It comes back. And you don't want to be riding this out with your profit if you're a scalper. Now, if you're a swing trader, you might risk that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to take my money here, and I'm going to look for a new entry when we come back up to this possible trend line. And you may have had your trend line. What you got to do here, this is what I'll usually do. I drew my trend line like this, but I also drew it like that just in case. You don't know which one, you know, a lot of times it's going to be the closes. There's a reason those stems are there. But this stem could have been there because of these highs right there. So, but I draw it right there, and guess where the next one goes down? And then you know that's it, because look how it came into play. And then I copy this and drag it down, and look where it goes to down here and bounces. So I know that's right. But guess what? When it came back up to this high, guess what? That's why I couldn't fill the gap from yesterday. That's right. It needed to go to right there. Actually, for yesterday's close, it needed to go to right there. So we missed that by a tick or two, but that's close enough. And then the retest starts. They just couldn't work it any higher than that. And I believe that's why we were finding, you know, they were trying to take it back up, but the selling was too strong. And most people are looking for that retest, and there it goes. So great entry right here. Could have run this all the way down, but guess what? You got a little, really it probably would have been right there, but this is a little trading range. And notice when we broke out, we pulled back, we tested, and we turned back down. So that's a little breakout pull back short, but it's also kind of a second entry. And you know, you were looking for prices to come here. So if you didn't enter here, here's your next chance to enter. And it's 2 tests of the EMA. It's a couple of tests of this. But anyway, you know, you don't know that it's going to rock it down. But guess what? Again, your runners were safe if you entered right there. Easy trade. Somebody asked me about runners today. How do you know if you're going, you know, they said that they keep buying and holding runners and they always get stopped out. Well, you're going to get stopped out on about probably 5 or 6 times out of 10. If it's a range day, you may get stopped out every time, especially a tight range like yesterday. There's no way to catch a runner in all this. There's no way. you're going to get stopped out every time. So just scalp out and be done with it. Now, when you're trending, guess where you always get the runners off? The key entry points. And, you know, where are the key entry points? It's the strong support and resistance. That's these flat lines across here on the range days, right across here and right across here. When you get entries off that, and that's all the trend lines are angled support and resistance lines. This is resistance all the way down through here. This is support all the way down through. And you can see it even came back into play later. We got through it here, but we know why prices were headed up here. It was to fill that gap. And that's why they were trying to go up there. Everybody's watching that gap, and everybody knows most gaps are filled, and it's self-fulfilling. It takes itself up there. But you got to understand why prices are doing this right here. You got to understand why prices did this right here. It's news-driven. And once it gets through there, you got to understand where it's probably going. It's probably going to a measured move. So hopefully all that makes sense. But again, we come down here. Really, you might have been thinking about going long here, but I didn't like the setup. It's too many, you know, that's too many overlapping dojis right there, and we could shoot on down again. You might have gone long here because then you got that little trap, but I didn't mark it because it's obvious, you know, after a move like that, we're moving down here. We make a lower high. You're better off to be looking for shorts. But there, at the time when we were here, let me just show you so you can see it. Earlier today, I mean, it looks like a range right there. But the real range was more up here. But it's a range there, and you can see we get this little fail, and it was tempting to go long right there. But you see, all it did was trap people, and that's why you don't want to counter trend trade. You want to wait for prices to cut. You want to get on with the trend, and there's your first opportunity right there. And guess what that is? That's a retest again of this breakout area up here. And it's a second attempt to try it, and it fails, and then off we go to the downside. You could have entered on this bar, but this is not a very good setup. I'll tell you why I want to show you both of these, because I actually entered right here. It broke higher first, so it trapped people, and then it comes down. So if it can break out this, if this bar can break below this bar after breaking above it first to the high side and then turning down, when you're looking for a short, then that's a good place to go short. So I was short right there. It backed up a little bit, but then immediately turned down, and you got a second chance to enter, but it's one tick lower than where I got in. Sometimes that comes into play. Sometimes it doesn't matter. But this was one of those days where we're going to try to make another leg just like that one, and it rockets on down. And where does it go to? It goes right to the support area again, which is this line that all I did was copy from up here and drag down. And that's exactly where you want to look to exit. And then guess what? Where is it going then? After you touch this side, the odds are we're going back to the other side. And so when it gets over here, we're going to look for another chance to go short. But guess what? Nothing. Notice how nothing set up there. It held right at the line, but there's never any kind of signal bar. It just keeps going higher. And that's why I drew this one in green, because notice we broke out of this little congestion area, and what happens, prices will usually snap back. But it's hard to see here, but we went higher and pulled back and then went back up. So we kind of did come back and test it, but you're usually going to get a better test than that. And guess what? We did come back and test it a few times. But I drew this one in green because this is a pretty strong move up. You really need to see a reversal pattern. If you did go short here, this is generally, you know, a trade like this is usually going to work for you. But if you did go short here, once you started seeing all these dojis, that's your clue to exit. And I did go short right here. And when we made this second doji and it ticked lower and started coming back inside here again, I just exited. I got a tick or two, I don't remember which, and I exited. I entered again right here too. But again, it's a little bit dangerous entering here because you really need to wait on a reversal pattern or some reason, unless you really know what's going on here and you know what prices are trying to do. So another good short right here. I drew it in green because it's kind of a counter trend trade at this point. Even though we're still looking for prices to come down, we need that reversal pattern or something to prove that we're trending lower now. And you don't have that yet. So, but it's, you know, it's two tests of this. It's an overshoot of this, but usually what happens, you'll get another push up that runs all the stops, and then it goes down. But there's a little gap right there, and that just filled the gap and turned down. So when it turned back down there, I felt really good about this trade, and I just held on. And didn't get a runner. It came back and got my runner right here. But it was too easy. It was a scalp, and this one probably made me a tick maybe. I can't remember. I think I got one tick out of that. But then guess what? We come back down, and I drew this trend line right here and just drug it up to the high side, and then we're coming back down, and guess where we're going to bounce right here. But you got to be thinking, I'm not going long here unless I've got a really, really good setup. You did have a little trap right here, but I wouldn't have taken it because I'm thinking, we're making a new low. But let's just see, you would have entered at 46.25, and that's a 4-tick failure. That's not a good sign at all. So if you did get sucked in right there, if you got fooled, once you see all that overlap, guess what that means? More than likely, because usually when you get it right, it takes off like these took off. What did this one do? It got hung up in here. So it should have been taken on back off up to this high if it was a good entry, especially after that trap. When we turned down right there and tried to turn back up, I really thought we were going to get a retest. I was looking for a break there, and I was going to drop a limit order in here. But look, it never triggered, so I never got in the trade, and I just waited, and you were able to go short right here. You don't want to go short out of that because look, again, 1, 2, 3, then you got 4 overlapping bars. That's congestion. And what happens when prices break out of congestion? They snap back. Look what happened. It broke out and it snaps back. And it makes a lower high. And then now you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lower highs. And there's you a good bearish bar. And look at that thing go off to the races. And we're coming back to retest this low. So you probably might have considered exiting right down here, but guess what? You would have got out way early, but I'm just going to tell you that's where I exited. And then you got a chance to get back in here for another leg down because there's a chance we could have rallied right out of there because we've got a trend line break and a new low. But until you see a reversal pattern, but when you saw that double bottom, you might have been thinking, reversal pattern, but guess what? We made another double top at the EMA, bounced off the former trend line, and turned back down. So that's a good place to go short. That doji right there might have scared you out, but I felt like that was worth taking. That's the reason I drew it in green, because it's really not a great signal bar when that doji formed right there without breaking below it. But if you saw this trade, it's a double top in a downtrend, right at the EMA, bouncing right off that trend line. It was a little more aggressive, but you can see it really paid off. And then this is a real aggressive trade here, but this is what rejection looks like. You always hear me say a reversal. See how when we made this low, how prices hung around down here? That's not, even though we're climbing out of there, that's not rejection. Then look, we come down here, we make a low. Look how prices are hung up down here and just struggling to get out of there. But then look what happened this time. We make this low, and that thing turns on a dime, closes on its high way up here, and that's rejection. People were looking for this reversal. People were looking for that setup, and that one little tick lower there that trapped. And so you could have gone along right above that bar, even though it's bearish because we went lower first, and it's coming off this support area. Again, it's aggressive. But now you should be expecting, you're better off to wait on second entry, but notice you wouldn't have, and now look, we're still going higher, exactly what you would expect. So this was I drew this one in green because it's really, really aggressive, but man, that's a great setup. Those are just almost like gimmies, and look at it go. I mean, that's what rejection looks like. People were looking to buy now, where it was a struggle to buy out of here and even out of here. But they were ready to buy now because they had everything they needed to know, even if we're not going to reverse, we're going to bounce out of here. And look at that. So hopefully all that makes sense to you. And I didn't mark anything after that. You don't want to be entering in all this. The bias is really up now. There's your retest of the trend line again. You might have gone long right there because you got a failed second entry short. Notice the new, um, actually you got a failed second entry long that just trapped people on a second entry short there. So it's really just not smart, especially this late in the afternoon. You know, just wait on a clear trend channel and or trend line and then try to get long. That was a pretty good setup right there. It's a failed failure really, and that's a reversal bar, and that would have given you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, that was an easy scalp, real quick one. I mean, it looked a little dicey after that bar closed, but you can't hardly ignore that one. So if you saw that trade right there, I would have taken that. I like that setup. Plus, you got a trap down here. Notice that you got all these lows. Let me just draw the line. It always makes it easier to see. Your last closes were there. Look how and there's your last closes, and look, we bounced. That's a sign that your sellers are getting weaker each time and your buyers are getting stronger. And then you got that reversal bar. It's kind of rejection off that line right there, off the EMA, and look how quickly it moved up. And my guess is we're going to keep moving higher. We may go into a trading range here, but it's so late in the afternoon, you never know what's going to happen. But look, even on this rally here, or this trend line break and the move up to fill the gap, if you'd have just drawn your trend lines and then finally you get a break and a pullback and a retest and then it turns down, you know, you got your signal. You know, until you got a break of that trend line and a retest of some kind, you stay with the, you know, you just keep watching it go up, or else you try to take one of the long trades. But this is why they're a little bit risky taking them, because the real trend is the downtrend, because we hadn't had a real retest yet. So the bias is down, and you don't want to be buying. So even these trades were sales, and I marked them in green because they're a little more aggressive. So, but that's over 30 minutes worth. This was a really good, like I said, a couple of really good days to learn some interesting things that so it was really good training days or teaching days that can show you, but you can't let this stuff fool you. These breaks and this break that was above here, you can't let that stuff fool you. That's the whole idea behind price action. Is you know, back in the old days when I didn't know any better, suddenly we move out of here. I don't know why we're going high. All I know is we're going high. I better buy, and guess what? You buy and it sells off, or you get trapped. And then suddenly you're trending down, and you know, you're thinking you're going to be selling every time it move down, and then it starts rallying. Like, why is it rallying? Well, you got to know why, and you got to understand why. You got to understand why it broke out of here, and then you got to understand what it's likely to do after it breaks out of there. Now everybody's thinking long here, but that's what they want you to think. They're fooling you just before they take it off, and then all your exit's going to help drive it down even further. Same thing here. They're just fooling you. That's the whole idea. That's why they let it break out and then it fails. They're fooling you. Smart traders have all their sell orders up here, and the weak traders all have buy orders up here because they're getting short down here. And you got to understand this stuff, and that's what learning about price action is. You not only understand where to enter, you understand why you want to enter there, and you not only understand where and why to enter, you understand why prices are doing what they're doing. When they're coming back here, when they're coming up here, they're coming back for a retest. They're coming back to test something. They're coming back to, in this case, to fill a gap and to maybe retest these other highs. And then when it's coming down here, you got to expect we're coming back to try to retest these areas. But really the reason we're coming back down here is because we're coming back to do a retest of these overnight lows, of the lows of this trend where we broke the trend line. So once you understand all that, it makes a whole lot more sense to you. So, but that's the goal, is to learn and understand this stuff. And no indicator is going to tell you this. No, you know, somebody sent me an email today that they read something about you couldn't make money trading unless you had very structured, I'm trying to remember what the wording was no, very specific and stringent rules. Well, guess what a stringent rule will do? All it will do is trick you into, it will force you into bad trades. We want to have, I mean, look what this is doing here. Stringent rules probably would have had you going long up through here. where guess what? You needed to be knowing that you were waiting for shorts to come back down. And so stringent rules, I understand why somebody would say that. The reason somebody would be thinking stringent rules is because that's their defense mechanism to fight the emotional struggles of trading, there's a very emotional tug and pull of fear and greed in trading. That's what makes it so hard. And so people's answer, people that are not profitable, their answer to that is, okay, if I draw stringent rules, then it takes the emotions out. Well, that's the wrong reason. You got to trade and work through and get experience until you don't have those emotions anymore. Trading it's mechanical. You're either going long or you're going short. If you have a loser, so what? That's what happens. I got to take that loser, take my loss, and it shouldn't affect you in any way. You should immediately be able to go right back to reading the price action and going. And when you get a winner, it shouldn't be any kind of emotions. You shouldn't get all, high-fiving and jumping up and down. I got a winner. It should just be part of it. You take your money and you start looking for the next trade. If you're feeling those emotions of fear and happiness and greed and depression, then you got a long way to go. You still got to work through all that. It's not mechanical, stringent rules that are going to get you through that. It's experience and understanding and knowing how to trade that will get you through that. And this is going to be the longest video ever. This is almost 40 minutes. But I think this is all good stuff, so I want to get it out there. So I hope you had a good trading day today. If you didn't, I hope I answered your questions. I'm starting to get a lot of people were doing really good about not sending me emails before the video, and I'll ask you again to consider that, because I'll usually answer your questions in the video. So I prefer that you wait till after the video so I don't have to answer, because I'll get the same question 10 times during the day, because a lot of people got food. A lot of traders got food right here thinking the same thing. Why aren't I, should I be going, they're trying to go long or short. They don't figure out what's going on here. And so they all asked me the same thing. And I got about a dozen questions on this. Most of them came after the video, but the video was early and I didn't talk about this yesterday. So when you don't see it in the video, that's when you ask me about it. But kind of wait on the video just so I don't get the same question 25 times. And if I don't answer it in the video, then you can send me and I'll either answer it or I'll tell you I answered it in the next video. So it just makes it easier for me, and it keeps me from typing the same thing 50 times every day. So hopefully that makes sense to you too. And it's not that I don't want you to send me questions, because if I'm here to support you in every way I can within reason. So I don't ever want to discourage anybody from asking questions. I just want you to understand that I get 100 other people asking me the same questions. So just kind of wait till after the video and see if I answer your question. If I don't, then fire away, and I'll try to get to it the next day. So, but anyway, again, hope you had a good trading day. I hope all this made sense to you. Again, this is going to be about a 40-minute video, and it's packed with a lot of good stuff. So I've been hoping, last few days, a couple of days earlier in the week, I felt like I was really, it was so boring. It was just typical, trend in one direction. And to me, it's boring, but I know that a lot of y'all, but I felt like I was struggling to show you anything interesting or that would help you. I know that's probably not the case. It's just the way I felt. But I really did a couple of videos earlier in the week. I'm trying to remember what day specifically. I think maybe it was this day. We just a boring trend all the way up, or it might have actually been this day. Yeah, I think it was this day. It was just a boring trend all the way down, and there's not anything out of the ordinary going on, and maybe that was the day. But a couple of times I felt like I was really struggling to give you anything really interesting that would help your trading, and I know that's probably not the case. I'm sure some of you always learn something every time you watch, and it's probably more me, but I just sharing that with you because somebody actually made a comment to me, a friend of mine. He says, hey, you all right today? You didn't sound yourself. And really, it's because he knows me well, and many of you may not even noticed it, but I felt like I was really struggling that day just to give you a good lesson. And so I want you to always get a chance to learn something. But today was a really good learning day. 40 minutes worth here. If I don't get off here in 10 seconds, it's going to be more than 40 minutes. So I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.